actually do. Like, they did studies, and I can't source it, but I thought this was so interesting. They said that if a salesman had blue eyes, he would make more sales or less sales than a brown-eyed person, because most people's mothers have brown eyes. I don't know if that's true, but isn't that fascinating? Like, you're right. We can get it down to the nitty gritty. I can say I have natural curly hair, and therefore I'm going to be discriminated against. Growing up in the 90s with curly hair, are you kidding me? Like, I was a mess. So I agree with you that these things can boil down to the absolute individual at the end of the day. But because we put laws on the books, at least in America, where it's a group, like, we don't say individual women can't vote. We say women can't vote. So what we're trying to do is just say, hey, instead of, no sodomy, how about you do what you want as long as consensual? And so we're moving towards that. Now, culture, I think, plays a much larger role than the law. Like, the systematic part is a social systematic want and expectation of behavior. And that's my personal issue. Like, I mean, I could use so many people as an example, but even Brett Weinstein's hesitation towards polyamory was because he didn't know how kids would be socialized. And I'm like, that's so interesting, because as an atheist and more of a libertarian, I think marriage shouldn't even be involved with the government. And then how you raise your kids should be done in an ethical and wholesome way. But there are 20 million different ways to do that in those, if you want it to be ethical and wholesome. So it's kind of one of those things where I don't think we can have these conversations about greater groups without getting down to individual cases. And so I think that if I can move intersectionality into that realm where I think it was originally intended, I think we can be in a better place, and where you and I will have we will agree on more and come to better compromises. It's why I'm going to be at MythCon. It's why I'm going to be with you guys on stage. I'm totally stoked to have these conversations. And I want the left to have these conversations. Liberalism saved my life because it was so important to who I was as a person. And feminism saved my life as a woman because I was going through a hard time, and it taught me, all of the things I needed to learn to be successful. And look, I'm successful, so it must have worked for me. So the idea of it for me is there are different philosophy, different thoughts behind feminism. And what I don't understand is why many people really don't know how to have a discussion about it in a little bit more of a complex way. It's not just definitions of words. It's how people take those words and then act on them. Like the leftist progressive friends that they don't talk to me no more because I was nice to the right. And I get that. That's a horrible feeling. It's the same feeling I had when atheists on YouTube left me because I became a feminist. It's the same feeling I had. I've been rejected from every group, which is why I'm a hardcore individualist. So what I'm saying is you're both right and you're both wrong. Because it is more complex. I agree with you that life is phenomenally complex, and this is why fundamentally, even before taking into account the moral implications of what intersectionality does, I think from a pragmatic view, the practical implications are it's a fool's errand. You're never going to be able to categorize everyone to enough detail to be able to actually encompass them as an individual using an overarching system. And especially because the more complex and interconnected and interlaced the system becomes, the more sensitive people are to even more minute differences until we are just chasing our own tails to categorize everyone along these lines. And that just seems like a totally foolish thing to do, in my opinion. I think it's necessary for civil rights. It's a waste of energy?
Yeah, it seems like a waste of energy to me.
Well, and in some ways, if it's done incorrectly, it can be not efficient. And so what I would like to do is add efficiency. I do think, though, in order for certain groups to gain any kind of resemblance to equal playing field of power, they have to move their people in a certain specific way. It's just a chess game, Carl. It's just a game.
Okay.
It's a game, and it's a bunch of people.
Let's hold that thought. Okay. Right. So let's move it into the realm of power politics between groups.
Okay.
Because that's what you've just done, right? It's just a game, it's a chess game between groups. What possible argument could there be for white people to give up power to black people?
Oh, as a group?
Yeah.
If you're talking about ethically, it gets a little dicey.
We're not.
But
we're talking about power.
Okay. Well, then there is no real reason if you just want power.
Exactly.
But we're not confused. I don't think you and I are confused. Go ahead.
You've just reduced the conversation to a chess game, a power play. That's everything about identity politics is just the interaction of power dynamics between groups. And if that's the case, there is absolutely no compelling reason why white people wouldn't just enslave black people once again. Because at the end of the day, if black people just want to take power away from white people, power which, let's be honest, in many cases, white people have justly earned. You know, if you're elected to the presidency of your country, how is that unjust? That seems like the most legitimate way of achieving power to me. But if you're going to be denied that or attacked on that ground on the basis that you're white, then why should white people do anything other than attack black people back on the basis that they're black?
Well, I think in America, we were raised. Yeah, I totally get it. So if I may. So talking about America, when people imagine, when my parents immigrated from Iraq, they said they were going to have the American dream. They were going to have freedom of choice, freedom of religion. They were going to be Christian and not persecuted. They were going to have all of the things. And as they came here, they started to understand that there were certain rules and expectations of behavior, and they adapted. They did very good as proper little immigrants. They did very well. And they went on to make a business, and they're very successful. They had 10 kids. They contributed to the economy. We all pay taxes, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that became apparent as their children started to get older was that, hey, you're 10 kids. Well, some of us are gay, and some of us are poly, and some of us are these things. And we would like representation through government. And who became my direct rival was my parents and their belief systems. And so that's when groups need to get together to fight against another dominant group. And that's how it happens. White people just happen to be in power. And there are, I call it black YouTube. There's white YouTube and there's black YouTube. White YouTube's like Richard Spencer, and black YouTube is like the hardcore separatists. And I consider these people valid as American citizens and extreme when it comes to their philosophies. And though I appreciate their input, I am going to decline to participate in funding them or encouraging them, because I think it invalidates the American dream, which is all of us are here to make our own dream. So if there are people telling you can't have that dream, America taught us go get it. You know? Okay.
I mean, I agree that gay people shouldn't be oppressed, but I don't agree that it should be on the basis of the group that is defined as gay people.
Okay, can you explain that a little bit?
The objection to that. Yeah. The objection to that should, in my opinion, as an individualist, should be based on the infraction of, on the violation of individual rights and individual freedoms. As far as I'm concerned, there isn't really a legitimate argument against homosexuality. The only ones I ever hear come from religion. And as I'm an atheist, I don't take that kind of irrational argument seriously. So to me, there's no justification to suppress homosexuality in any way, shape, or form beyond the usual realm of how we would suppress expressions of heterosexuality, like paedophilia and things like this, rape, or that sort of thing. So I don't see why the same rules can't apply. But I don't see that why we would collectivize gay people as an oppressed class. Why that would be something that would be productive to the goal of liberation of gay people.
So we are completely on the same page, and I'm really excited about this because this means we are totally I agree with you. I find though, this is a calculated move. This is what other groups had done before us. So the left has to congregate as a group. We fight for groups' rights because, again, laws in the United States aren't made as individuals. They're made as wholes. We can't present that on a ballot that would make sense to religious people. And because religious people are primarily the dominant people in the United States, when we create campaigns for homosexuality, we have to do it on that basis. We have to. Otherwise, we're not going to get through, and it's going to take us another 30, 40 years to actually get to that point. Because in the United States, we don't want individuals here. Not really. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so there's no such thing as group rights in an individualistic democracy. And as soon as you start introducing group rights, you undermine and eventually will destroy the individuality, the individualist nature of that democracy. So, I mean, I find what you're proposing there really, really dangerous. Very dangerous. Because, I mean, there's no reason that straight people couldn't. I mean, I'm straight and I'm in favor of a gay person's right to have sex with another another man. You know, I don't require any. There doesn't require any group interaction there. What is required is a moral argument over a theocratic argument, and that's not a hard thing to provide. Obviously, living in democracies, you're going to find places where there are people who are particularly set in their ways and particularly conservative, and they're not going to be happy with that. But I think that most of your country is probably pro-gay rights at this point, so I think that you've won the argument. And I think, I mean, don't you now have universal gay marriage in your country? Yes,
but it's constantly being fought. People want to separate California into 3 states so they don't have to have gay marriage in the South.
Right, okay.
So we're still fighting people. So we're still fighting people. So what I'm saying is, well, may I ask you then, don't you believe that your ultimate goal, which is I'm all on board for it, is sort of we're not here yet. So I understand that you want to live like we're there yet, but we haven't caught up. Systems haven't caught up. So how can we get to the point where we've caught up?
Sure. I mean, activism, obviously, the same way everyone else does. But the problem is intersectionality pits groups against one another. And it's not as simple as that. And it's really not as simple as that. I mean, okay, there's no reason that you couldn't have an extremely ideologically diverse section of people who say, we are in favor of gay rights. You can get anarchists, libertarians, communists, feminists, homosexuals, people who aren't necessarily ideologically aligned but are being physically or legally restrained from having gay intercourse or marriage or whatever. And this coalition of people can be activists in their own way, and they can encourage people and persuade people using their own various and varied arguments in favor of this from their own ideological positions. But what intersectionality does is it comes along and says, right, I have a mandate to declare that everyone in this group is to be categorized on the basis of their privilege and their oppressions. And now, if you don't operate in the way I want you to operate, I have a pathological sect of activists who are going to come in like steamrollers and attack every single person on the basis of what they perceive to be privileges and oppressions if they don't fall in line. This is naturally going to destroy any movement that it comes into contact with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that intersectionality is actually undermining its own cause. And I think it's a very domineering way to do anything. Seems anti-liberal to me.
I do agree with you that younger generational individuals who have ideas of what intersectionality is might transform it into only being oppression politics. But I would argue that like Kimberly Ann Foster, who's another one of my favorite thinkers, she, believes that she's intersectional, and though she's focused on the rights of Black women, she wants to uplift everyone by uplifting and focusing on the people that she can best represent. But that's not to say that her feminism is anti-men or her womanism is anti-anyone who isn't women, or that her intersectionality isn't more than just an acknowledgement. I think at the base, at the foundation of intersectionality is just an acknowledgement of a system in place. And then it's our jobs, because this was done in 1989. So it made sense more so then, literally LA riots, talking about that time, the civil rights movement, like everything that had just happened. Those are generations of people who had lived through segregation. My mother lived through segregation in Detroit. And it's just it's crazy to think how recent it was. And it's funny to me that we think we're so advanced as a species that we think we've just we're still dealing with slavery from when America was first founded. And I want us to give ourselves time. I want humans to just have time to update and come to a conclusion that's a little bit more logical. It's why I'm extremely patient with the religious, because I admire their passion, but I would like there to be logic to our systems. Yeah.
Okay. So I think my problem primarily is that the politics of identity is the politics of victimhood. I mean, for example, Kimberly Crenshaw was the lady you were citing. Yeah. Was that the lady you referenced here?
Yes.
I mean, does she think? Yeah. Does she think that men are oppressing women?
I don't know that. I've only focused on her race-oriented work, but she's talked about how
white people
Black
are oppressing
women,
Black people. Does she think that white people are oppressing Black people?
Systematically, yes.
Well, I mean, what do you mean by systematically?
Systematic, social. And the laws are getting eradicated as we move forward. And keep in mind, I don't know all the laws and books. This isn't my realm of expertise in that particular regard to U.S. law. But from my understanding, there are still laws, loopholes in the law, just like the sodomy laws, that do keep people who are classified as brown or other in certain categories of value. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure those laws aren't actually a reflection of societal interaction. And I think that's my worry, right? We don't want people to be treated unfairly. The cake bake guy is my favorite. Jack Phillips. He's my favorite, because people right away were very mad at me, and they're like, he's not baking a cake for those gay people. And I said, no.
Sorry, do you mind if I don't want to go off on a tangent.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so I mean, I take it you can't think of any particular examples where white people are institutionally, systemically oppressing black people. Because, I mean, when I look at